Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Hormone Podcast. Today we're going to chat about how we can use nutrition to reduce your gut symptoms. And yes, what exactly are FODMAPS? This episode is sponsored by my upcoming, as in tonight, online workshop, Bloated to Beautiful. How do you get to the root cause of your bloating? In this workshop, you'll discover why you're so bloated, the root cause of bloating, and how to use nutrition to beat your bloat. So if you haven't registered, you've only got a little bit of time, jump to the show notes, register for tonight's free event at 6 p.m. Australian Western Standard Time. I can't wait to meet you there. So today we're chatting about FODMAPs. Also, what other nutrition strategies can you use to help beat your IBS and bloating? So I'll always harp on about nutrition should be the cornerstone of your gut health and hormone treatment plan. So there are a lot of different things that are important and are supportive. There's a lot of great supplements around, but nutrition is always number one. So when we're talking about bloating and IBS, and if you haven't listened to the IBS podcast, flick back and have a listen because it will give you some more insight into bloating, why you have it and what can cause it. So bloating often comes from that fermenting of food within your small or large intestine, which can give you that real pregnant kind of look with your stomach. So if it's shortly after eating, like 20 to 30 minutes, then often we think it's linked to SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So those bacteria that produce that hydrogen, so that gas within your stomach, are overgrown in your small intestine, which can give you that uncomfortable bloated feeling. This can also happen in your large intestine because it overgrows from your large into your small intestine. So if this is happening, if you have this bacterial overgrowth, what can we implement with your nutrition that's actually going to help? Now, when this was me with my bloating and constipation for years, I tried so many things to try and help my bloating and bowel movements, and none of them seemed to work. So sometimes dietary changes can be helpful with symptomatic support, but sometimes when it's ongoing issues, and once again, I cover this in the IBS podcast or episode, then you need to look for the root cause. But when you're struggling with symptoms day to day, sometimes you don't have the time to wait for testing to come back and you just want some support, or you just need to get through each day. So this is when the FODMAP diet can be really, really helpful. It helps to reduce your symptoms. So what actually is the FODMAP diet? So FODMAPs can be given a bad rap. So FODMAPs is an acronym and it stands for fermentable. So this means it's broken down by the bacteria in the gut. So that's the F. Then our O is for oligosaccharides. So this includes fructans, which can be found in grains, in vegetables, and in some fruits. And also, I'm going to probably say this wrong, galacto-oligosaccharides. So this is found in your legumes, beans and lentils. So often I find that these oligosaccharides, so your grains or your legumes, cause some of the severest symptoms in clients, but also your disaccharides, so that's your D. This is your lactose, so in your milk and dairy products, they can be very symptomatic in specific people as well. Then we have your M, your monosaccharides. So this is, we're looking at fructose. So fruit, honey, some vegetables can also contain fructose. And we've got your polys, so your sugar alcohols. So some fruits and vegetables, or even your sugar-free sweeteners like some chewing gum or mints actually have polyols in them as well. And they can actually cause some symptoms too. So sometimes women can't pick it in a food, but it may actually be these sugar alcohols which are causing your loose stools or your bloating and that fermenting within your gut. So that's what our FODMAPs, that acronym, actually stands for. So FODMAPs are not inherently bad for everyone. Many people can eat fermentable carbohydrates and have no negative side effects. However, there are certain individuals who do respond strongly to and very negatively to these high level of FODMAPs in the diet. If you do, then you really need to monitor the amount that they are eaten or ingested to avoid these unpleasant symptoms. So it's not always a matter of eliminating heaps of foods. It's often more restricting the amount. So it's more how much of that certain acronym or letter, so to speak, so your lactose or your fructans, how much you can actually tolerate at a certain time. So because FODMAPs are not absorbed completely by the small intestine, the excess travels down to the large intestine where these anaerobic bacteria feed on them and produce this large amount of gas. So again, they're not absorbed by your small intestine, so they get to your large intestine, bacteria feed on them, then you get this gas, okay? So when you get this gas, then you get what we call gastrointestinal problems. So this is where we might have abdominal pain, we might have bloating, you might have flatulence. I have so many women complain, they're like, I'm so gassy all the time. It just smells and I'm gassy. What is going on? I don't want to be around people. I don't want to go to work. Like, can you help me? And sometimes it is just linked to these foods. Often we might have pathogens or other things within the gut that are causing these issues as well, but sometimes just playing around with FODMAPs can be enough to alleviate the gassiness short term. Humans lack the enzymes to digest oligosaccharides, so no one is able to absorb them. The bacteria need to break them down. So our oligosaccharides were our fructans, so in grains, vegetables and fruits, and also galacto-oligosaccharides, our legumes, beans and lentils. So you can't absorb them, you need the bacteria in your gut to break them down. So if you don't have adequate bacteria in your gut, you cannot break them down. And this is something that is starting to be more and more known. So we're going, oh, we actually need a healthy microbiome to break down some of these foods properly. So it's like building up those bacteria in your gut. It's the same as working on a muscle in the gym. If you never feed that particular strain of bacteria, it's never going to grow and get stronger and produce more of it. Just like if you never work your biceps in the gym, they're never going to grow. So low levels of those bacteria, and they can get wiped out by many things. Birth control pill, antibiotics, poor diet, stress will all impact them. If they are not rebuilt and fed and grown up, because you're going, hey, I'm reacting to gluten or legumes, therefore I'm never going to eat them, then this bacteria is never going to grow. And I'll jump into that later, but it is about slowly building these things up. So polyol absorption is incomplete. So again, they're malabsorbed in many people. So that was those sugar alcohols. So those sugar-free sweeteners are definitely one of those things that people do struggle to absorb. Disaccharides, so your lactose, and monosaccharides like your fructose, so your dairy and some of your fructose, or some of your fruits and vegetables, are only malabsorbed in some people. So not everyone they're malabsorbed, but you will notice there's certain people who will eat lactose and within an hour it will want to go straight through them. So you can do breath testing to look for SIBO, so that small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which will give you a good idea if that bacteria has overgrown and if that's causing that malabsorption, which is then causing the problems within your large intestine as well. So just to recap, lots of us, or all of us, don't have the enzyme to digest your grains and your legumes. Therefore, you need lots of good bacteria to break them down. Sugar alcohols or sugar-free sweeteners, they are poorly absorbed. Lactose and fructose are malabsorbed in some people, so not everyone. So what actually is a low FODMAP diet? Well, the low FODMAP diet is a diet, as it suggests, that is low in fermentable, poorly absorbed carbohydrates. So it removes the foods that feed the bacteria in the gut. Therefore, it helps to relieve your gas, your bloating, and other digestive symptoms. So some studies have shown that a low FODMAP diet can greatly reduce the symptoms of IBS, so our irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, and colitis. So a low FODMAP diet can be combined with a specific carbohydrate diet, and we'll talk about that another time because your head's probably full of FODMAPs at the moment, to address things like SIBO or large intestinal bacterial overgrowth as well. It can be really helpful for that. The thing that I find the biggest problem with the low FODMAP diet is that it's not meant to be a lifetime diet. So once the GI tract has been repaired, so we're looking at removing pathogens, working on SIBO, gut bacteria brought back into balance, digestive function has improved, then we want to reintroduce as many of these foods as possible. So the low FODMAP diet would mean you avoid all high FODMAP foods for a short time. So this is usually around 2 to 8 weeks until your symptoms are gone. Then we work at introducing the categories one at a time to determine what your tolerance actually is. So if a category, say lactose, is tolerated, then you can keep this category in and go to the next. So you go, hey, I can handle lactose, let me try fructans now, or let me try grains now. If it's not tolerated, so if you don't handle lactose at all, you take it back out and then we try the next category to see how you go. So following it, you want to follow it like I said, so avoid those high FODMAP foods for 2 to 8 weeks until your symptoms are gone, then add them in one at a time. It's important to note that sometimes you can tolerate a food at a certain amount, so like, 1 Brussels sprout, but if you had 3, you may not tolerate it, okay? So some of these symptoms when you go, oh, am I tolerating or not? Your common symptoms are your gas, your bloating, your diarrhea, your constipation, and intestinal pain. So if you have any of those, then we go, hey, let's keep that out for a while, and then we'll start to add it back in, okay? It can also be linked to not gastrointestinal symptoms. So sometimes you might notice other things, changes in mood, skin reactions, headaches, those kinds of things, sleeping problems. So it's really important to note down any symptoms you have before, during, and after you're doing the low FODMAP diet. The easiest way to follow a low FODMAP diet, I find personally, is through the Monash University app. So they've got an awesome app which actually categorizes the food in a traffic light system. So what might be green in something, like I said earlier, 1 Brussels sprout is green, but if you have 3, it's up in the red. And it'll actually tell you what type, so say if it's fructans, what category that food is high in, so that if you go, hey, I'm fine with lactose, you can eat all the foods that might be red in lactose. But if you don't handle legumes, for example, so those gallo oligosaccharides, then you might go, hey, it's red in that, I'm not going to eat it. So that low FODMAP diet app is super, super helpful, and I always tell my clients to download it because I reckon it's one of the best things, and for me it was the easiest thing as well. So some of the foods, let's make it a little bit more practical for you. Some of the foods that might give you a FODMAP reaction, some of your real high FODMAP foods that I see the biggest reaction, things like beans, lentils, chickpeas, dairy, sort of your softer dairies across the board are generally the worst. Some of your teas, like fennel tea or things like chicory or inulin, those things can give you FODMAP reactions. Your worst offending vegetables usually are like cauliflower, large amounts of broccoli, Brussels sprouts, garlic and onion are kind of your top ones that people pick straight away. But other things like asparagus, peas, and spring onions can be a bit tricky as well. Some of your worst offending fruits are things like apples, avocado as well, watermelon, dried fruit, because it's such a high intensity of sugar. Your grains, your wheat, your barley, your rye can be all quite offending for your gut as well. All your fats and oils are fine. Some nuts and seeds like almonds can give you a little bit of an adverse reaction. Your spices and seasonings, again, your onion and garlic are your biggest ones. In saying that, although garlic must be avoided, if you have like an oil that's infused with garlic, it is actually low FODMAPS. So you can make this yourself. You chop the garlic, saute it in a bit of oil, you strain out the garlic because that's what's got the fibers in it, and then you can refrigerate and reuse the oils. Now, another thing to note is you want to avoid prebiotics. So they're fermentable food for the bacteria. So this sometimes can be found in probiotic supplements, but also different fibers that you can have, like your fructose oligosaccharides or your inulin or your GOS, which feed your good bacteria, which is really important, but they can be really hard to digest for people with this gut bacteria imbalance. So if you've done that, if you've downloaded the app, you did your 2 to 8 weeks, your symptoms have disappeared, you've been following it really closely, and you're like, wow, cool, this is amazing. Like, I want to stay on this forever. No, for starters, no, you don't. You want to add those foods back in because, like I said, those high FODMAP foods are really high in prebiotic fibers. So you do want to start to feed that good bacteria back. So how do we start to reintroduce these foods again? I like to do it to pick one food group per day and stick with it for 3 days. So you'll have it at 3 meals for 3 days, stop for 4 days, and then try a different category. Today, I have the privilege of speaking to Kitty and Craig. So Kitty and Craig are co-owners of New Strength, Saturate, and also
Eat More, Train Less, Get Results podcast.
Okay.
There was a study that was done with 10 dietitians and 10 non-dietitians, and they compared the two groups when one group was tracking, the other one wasn't, and then they swapped. And even the group of dietitians and nutritionists, so these are the people who you pay for nutrition advice, when they weren't actually adhering tracking, they were on an average of underreporting 250 calories. Wow. And one of them was up closer to 800 calories. Wow. So the people who are professionals at this, they're still getting it wrong by a decent amount that would dictate changes in body weight on a weekly basis. So if they're getting it wrong and they understand it, if you don't understand food and macronutrients and what foods are giving you what, then you can see how easy it is for people who, I've been doing all this stuff for a while and my weight's going up and I just don't understand why. And it's just like, well, because you haven't actually understood the skill of how to track and what foods are doing what. And unless you actually ever go through that process, you're massively going to underreport what you're eating. And the other thing too is what people subconsciously eat, like I always kind of use the example. I'm like, you dish it out, the ice cream, you're like, oh, there's my 100 grams. And there's still like 30 grams on the spoon and you eat that as well. And, there's all the licks and bites and stuff that aren't accounted for. And if you're just not being specific with that stuff, you are becoming completely ignorant to the actual result that you're getting. It's like, yeah. I believe I should be losing weight, but my weight's actually going up. There must be something wrong with me. It must be my body. And in 99.9% of cases, it's just a simple case of you not actually being accurate with what you're intaking. And yeah.
So this was the driver of New Strength and then the program you created. So have you been running your program for 8 years then, or was that a later addition?
So the gym was 3 years, and then we developed the Win at Life program. Yeah. And we just wanted to, because the gym we worked with both males and females, and then we wanted to like niche down, and we thought, okay, well, what, I really wanted to, and Craig was fine with this because, I'm the foghorn face of the business. and he's the coach, head of coaching. But help, I just really wanted to help women and combine what we learned about pro-metabolic eating and, supporting thyroid function, and, like sugar's not the enemy and you can drink all that sort of stuff with what Craig taught around body composition change, strength training, to give women, free women, and give them the power back with their bodies and the ability to change their bodies in a healthy and sustainable way. And I also the strength training too, which I just love, which I think is so empowering. And, I just get so excited about it. And I think it's just so beneficial for all women, and really give them the tools and knowledge so that they could learn it, make the changes, and then carry it on and, into their own life without always having to rely on a coach, to say, eat this food and here's your meal plan. We teach all the women how to build their own meal plans with all the different foods that they enjoy. No one meal plan in our program is the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
They build it themselves. Hey, Craig, like the coaches work with them to refine it.
It's just a simple question. I'm like, any diet or any nutrition strategy or approach that you're doing, you have to ask yourself the question, can I see myself doing this in, say, 12 weeks time and enjoying it? And if the answer is no, stop it right now, change the approach, because it just, again, it's something that I feel that's just been overcomplicated. And, certainly with social media, and there's just so much noise and there's so much information out there, but people are more confused than ever. So we have to bring it back to the simplicities of, am I enjoying what I'm doing?
Yeah.
I can honestly, sorry to get you off. I can honestly look at all of the meals that I'm eating today, right? I eat 5 meals a day. That works with my schedule. And, in between when I have breaks and doing podcasts, all that sort of stuff, 5 meals works best for me. And I can absolutely say with 100% certainty that each 5 of those meals, I enjoy every single one of them and I look forward to them. If you can't say that, then it's not going to work. So change it, right?
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong. It has to start with enjoyability and personal preference first.
And most people, I think, like, I know some people listen to this and go, I fucking love green vegetables. I'm like, you don't really. Like, I just don't believe, like, I was the same. I was like, I love green vegetables. I love my grilled chicken breast. I'm like, well, why the fuck do you keep falling off the wagon, kitty, and consuming tubs of ice cream and corn chips and shit on a Friday night because you cut all the sugar out of your diet for a week? Whereas now, when I actually eat enough to fuel my body, I just love orange juice so much. I love ice cream. I eat these things every single day. We had our holidays. I did drink a bit too much alcohol. I used to be a big boozer, and I drink occasionally now, but I just sort of, I don't know, like maybe a leopard never changes spots, but I just ate my normal food over the holidays. Whereas before it'd be like, oh, holidays, I'm just going to eat everything in sight, binge all holidays, and then get back to my strict routine. And I think, like what Craig said, you've got to enjoy it, but I think there's some fundamental, like which things we teach in our program around, like, getting the right nutrients. So mainly whole food diet that includes, liver and oysters, bioavailable protein from animal sources, saturated fats, nutrient dense sugars, those things, salts, and if you're getting a good quality dairy, if you're getting those nutrients, what foods you get them from that are, easy to digest, it doesn't really matter. Like, I eat quite a lot of cheese. Craig doesn't eat as much cheese as me. He drinks more milk. Like I eat ice cream.
I love cheese. I just milk just tends to work with my so it's then you can have the sugar, you can have your chocolate. Like this lady yesterday, she's like, I just wanted to find a diet where I could eat all the foods that I loved and lose weight. And she's like, this is it. I found it, the holy grail. It's amazing. I feel amazing. It's just, and she's like, I'm just so excited. I want to tell everyone, and she's like, I feel so excited about building my meal plan, and I do it every week, and I look forward to my meals, and I feel like I've got control back, and I think that's what really excites me is just, and she's like, the brain fog's lifted. I'm feeling so good in myself again.
Yeah, it's such a changed way of thinking. Like, I remember going from that and going, well, I eat all these green veggies, and I had 10 years of gut issues and SIBO and parasites and bacteria and stuff. So you always have this food fear in a sense, because you're always going, oh, now I'm treating this and now I'm treating that. And that was really hard. So then my approach with clients was really like, oh, well, anti-candida stuff and anti-parasite stuff and this and that. And then once you sort of start to understand, go, okay, but I'm losing so much of that nutrient density if you're not pushing, for them to get their digestion to a point that they can handle dairy again, or to make sure they're eating enough butter or liver or oysters or, those real nutrient dense foods. And I realized that was such a big element that I was missing in my practice, because I was so focused on how we're removing this,
the
candida
symptom.
virus. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, instead of treating the system as a whole, like improving, like, because Craig, you had the parasite and it took him a couple of years but back then too, we were in the gym and we were stressed as like working massive hours. So I look back now and like, oh, that was probably a massive contributing factor, but you're good now.
It wasn't one thing there. I mean, having a parasite that you then needed to treat with some pretty aggressive courses of antibiotics is going to take a while for your gut flora to repopulate and be normal again, but that was a very unique issue. But again, the only way you overcome that is by understanding what's wrong, measuring what's going in, seeing how you're feeling, make adjustments based off that. And then,
but remember, like, you couldn't eat anything, and like he would have this super strict diet, and now like sometimes we'll have burritos and we'll have sourdough bread and we have spaghetti.
At one stage I couldn't eat pasta. I would just be bloated.
Oh, he was he's super strict, and now because he's just improved his thyroid function and his digestion, just the system overall, he's a lot more, I guess, resilient, and his digestion is more robust. Whereas you're right, like if you're constantly just focusing on, I've got to fix the symptom, it just never gets better.
Yeah, and people also go, some people can handle going straight into pro-metabolic eating and cutting out, lots of different foods and then incorporating a whole heap of dairy, and it's fine for them. But then I think like the women I see on a daily basis with all their stool testing and their gut issues and go, oh, actually, it's a really good, like, this is where you want to get to. But if you go and drink that much milk, you're going to feel awful.
You've got to go slow.
Yeah, exactly. People just go, oh, I'll do all that. Or women go, oh, okay, I'll add all these carbs back in, but they're not measuring anything, and then they just feel awful as well. Like there's and that comes back to the measurement what Craig was talking about. Like, there are, when we were having this conversation this morning, because we see this all the time, is like the healing pounds, and there are women that like me, I was small, I was 62 kilos, I'm 174 centimeters, I'm like 70 kilos now. I've got more muscle obviously, but like there are women who really did restrict and were at a very low levels of body fat, so they actually needed to gain body fat and weight to be healthy. But then there's women who are massively overweight, they don't need to gain any more body fat. But I think you're right, that people don't track anything, and Craig sees it all the time, is they just go and eat all this beautiful saturated fat and ice cream and heaps of carbs, and they just stack all this weight on, and they're like, oh, why have I gained all this weight? Well, you've just eaten in too much of a calorie excess for where you are right now, which makes sense. Yeah. Because the food's so delicious too. It is. Yeah. Once you start seeing Kate's recipes and your recipes and you start looking at all the repeat stuff and go, oh, I can eat that. And that's great.
But still, calories is calories, like even if you've got a good metabolism and you're active, you can still eat too much of good calories still. Like if I ate 3,500 calories, I would gain weight.
Yeah.
Like I would.
Yeah. So how long have you been strength training for then, Kitty?
Like really proper strength training since I met Craig. Because before that, I wasn't doing it properly. I was just running around the gym stupidly.
Yeah, I mean, you were training. There wasn't any specificity to what you were doing. It was like, I can do a bit of this, I can do that. Yeah. It was all like the measurement of a hard training session was, how sweaty and out of breath you were. Yeah. And I'm like, well, how much weight have you added to the bar in the last 4 weeks? Like, what are you talking about? Why were you? I'm like, well, you are weight training. Like the goal is to train the weight. That's what it is. So if you're not adding more weight to the bar or getting more reps over time, then you're not progressively overloading, then you're not actually making any progress.
Is that a common issue you see with women coming into their program, that they've been doing a lot of group fitness or a lot of unstructured training, and then they come into your program and they actually obviously see the progress, and you would see the muscle build over time?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought process, is that as I mentioned, the definition of a hard workout or a successful workout, is how exhausted you are at the end of it. And it's just like, well, you can't measure exhaustion. You can't measure sweat. You can't measure how out of breath. I mean, they're symptoms of what you were doing. But what we're actually trying to do is change our physique. Like, it's like, why are you going to the gym? It's like, because I want to be less fat. I'm like, okay, well, let's think about the things that actually dictate the changes in that. So as I mentioned earlier, the amount of food you eat controls your body weight. how strong you get in the gym. You go to the gym, you lift weights, progressively heavy weights over time, you build muscle. The muscles grow or they shrink depending on if you stop training, they shrink. If you start lifting weights and getting stronger, they grow, right? So the difference, when we're looking at, say, for example, a 75 kilo female, and let's just say she's eating 2,000 calories a day, that's what's maintaining her 75 kilos of body weight. If she then goes to the gym and gets really, really strong and puts on, a kilo of lean muscle mass, but still eating the same amount of food that controls her 75 kilos of body weight, if she's put on a kilo of lean muscle mass, that means she's dropped a kilo of fat, because what makes up your total body weight is muscle and fat. Yes, there's bones and glycogen and water and all these other things that we can't actually affect. But what we can actually affect is how much fat we have and how much muscle we have. So if we're just looking at the components of what makes that up, how much we eat controls our body weight, how strong we get controls our muscle mass. Our fat is the difference between getting those two metrics right. So if we're building muscle and we're getting stronger, but we're controlling our body weight with our food, then our fat comes off. And this is the whole body recomposition process, and how it works is that at the end of the day, if you're getting stronger and you're adding weight to the bar and you're doing more reps over time across all of the exercises, whether it's squats, whether it's a leg press, whether it's a lat pull down, whether it's a bicep curl, whatever it is, the same framework needs to be applied. If your muscles continuing to go up and you're controlling your intake, your fat comes off. It's very, very simple. It's very, very logical. It's very easy to measure. So if you're doing stuff outside of that, like you're doing the boot camps and the kettlebell swings and the box jumps and that insulting, utterly dumb exercise called a burpee and skipping and all this other stuff that makes no contribution whatever to building lean muscle mass, then it becomes utterly irrelevant if the goal is to change your body composition and have physique development. So the whole process of what I'm trying to get through to people is be as specific as possible. If it doesn't match that, then there's no point doing it. Oh, how much cardio? I really want to do my 10Ks. What for? Oh, because I believe it burns fat. How do you measure what the 10Ks that you're running is actually burning any fat at any given time? I don't. Right. So if you can't measure it, don't bother doing it. If we already understand that fat is a result of body weight and muscle mass, then those things don't. So if you want to run because you're an athlete and you go running, you do marathons, absolutely. But that is sports specific conditioning. That is not what we do for fat loss. So again, it's just being specific to what you're doing. So be like, I like running because it makes me feel good. Okay, great. Go and run. But from a coach's standpoint, I can't tell you what that running is doing other than exhausting you and potentially taking your ability to recover from the weight training. That's the thing that's actually going to develop your physique. So if we remove that variable and then everything starts to improve, well, there's the answer to the question. How about you just not run for a while? Can you do that?
When you just get such better results, like training less. Like I was training like, hey, Craig, 6-7 days a week, 2 hours a day. And Craig dropped it back to like, I've only ever trained 3 to 4 days a week. But actually like learning how to lift and adding weight to the bar and getting progressively stronger in my physique. And obviously and walk too. You know, we in our program, you know, we're not saying that you can't do more. So if you have time and you are prioritizing recovery and you're an athlete and you're whatever, you can do more. But obviously most of the women we work with, they don't have time to train 5 days a week and do a heap of cardio and walk every day. Like they're busy mums with kids. So they love our program because you can get good results training 3 to 4 days a week, getting your steps in, eating the yummy food.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empowered Hormones podcast. My name's Sheradyn, if you don't know me, but I know that plenty of you guys do. And you've probably noticed that I've taken a couple weeks off from recording podcasts. I've just been busy with the Root Cause program, which is the 6-month program where I work with women to rebalance their hormones and also work on healing their gut microbiome. So this is sort of my signature program where I go into the functional testing, and a lot of women ask why I don't do one-off consults anymore, and really it's because I want to see you get results. And I see a lot of women, or you see a lot of women who would come in and do 1 or 2 sessions thinking that they can correct what's going on with their gut, with their microbiome, with their hormone imbalances, with their heavy, painful periods in 4, 6, 8 weeks. And I just know from my personal experience that it's just not possible. It's really hard to do these things in such short time frames, especially when you consider how long you've been sick for, or how long you've had these period issues for, or skin issues for, or gut issues for. And if you've had bloating or constipation or loose stools for years, the reality is it's going to take time to correct these things. So anyway, being flat out with that, if you haven't joined my free Facebook group, make sure you jump over and just search for Gut Health Solutions. I go live in there each week and always posting interesting content for you. We've always got recipes going up live as well, so make sure you're a part of that. Otherwise, find me on socials, Sheradyn_functional nutrition, and flick me a DM. I'm pretty active on there, so it's always nice to connect with you in those ways. And so today I want to chat about low progesterone. So low progesterone, why we care and how to correct it. So I've had quite a few clients lately, or actually even across the board. I've picked up on Facebook and Instagram just how many women are exhausted. We just seem to be going through an adrenal fatigue or an adrenal sort of burnout stage. And a lot of women I speak to are just like, Sheradyn, I'm just so tired. I'm so tired all the time. And part of that, yes, it might be viral related or having been sick or something along those lines. And I've done podcast episodes on ways to correct this and to support your adrenals, and just to give your body the best chance of bouncing back if you are feeling a bit exhausted. But today we want to go, well, why is progesterone getting low as well? So when we do functional testing, like the Dutch comprehensive urine testing, or even your basic blood work, or a little bit, your middle sort of ground, which is your saliva testing, and we're looking at those adrenal patterns, but we're also looking at your hormones. So your progesterone to estrogen ratio is really, really important, as well as your overall progesterone and overall estrogen. And when you get those results back, if you can see that your progesterone is actually quite low, even if your estrogen isn't high, but if your progesterone is low, you're still in what we call estrogen dominant state. The flip side of that is that progesterone is actually fine, but estrogen is really, really high, then it's still in an estrogen dominant state. So it's basically telling me two things. It's telling me a little bit about your adrenal glands, and it's telling me a little bit about your ovaries, and I'll jump into that in a sec. But when you're getting hormone testing done, depending on your budget and what else you've got going on with your body, if it's just a check-in, yes, blood tests will give you a quick, short, sharp answer. If you want to get a little bit more information, I always recommend saliva testing as a base. That's around the $130 mark, because we can start to draw a bit of a picture with your adrenals. Because remember, your hormones, and I'm just going to keep it really simple today because it's mainly about progesterone, but let's just say progesterone and estrogen aren't produced in your ovaries alone. There's an adrenal part playing into that as well. So it's nice to know that full picture. And also remembering, if your adrenals are under pump, if you're really stressed, your body's not making a baby. So that's really, really important to understand why your body's doing what it's doing. It's not doing it because it wants you to feel moody or low or tired, exhausted. It's doing it out of a protective state. Just like if you're not eating enough food, or if you're over exercising, you're not going to have regular healthy periods because your body's going, something's not right. And if you haven't listened to the podcast episode I did with Lisa Hendricks-Jacks about the fifth vital sign and optimizing your fertility, I really, really recommend that you do, because we've got to start to understand that our periods are your fifth vital sign. So they are telling you every single month what's going on with your body. Now, if they're heavy, if they're light, if they're missing, if they are going further and further apart or closer and closer together, remember, something isn't quite right. So it's really important to understand that and start getting some testing done as to, okay, well, what are my levels at, and what factors are surrounding that or influencing that, which is causing this to be an issue. So start with those, whether it's blood work or saliva testing, and then if you're like, I just want to get to the root of what's going on and I want to dig a bit deeper, then send me a DM about doing some Dutch comprehensive hormone testing. So you can Google that, or you can jump to the link in my bio on Instagram, or you can go, which will send you to one of the old podcast episodes I've done on Dutch testing and hormone testing. And I think that's a really, really important episode for you to listen to start to understand why we do these different tests as well. The other thing that is always really, really good to do is track ovulation. So track ovulation, track your symptoms, track your bleeds. So track the days of your cycle, how long they go for. If you're spotting, I like to use Kindara just because I can put in loose stools, constipation, bloating, cervical mucus, changes in libido. If you're having sex, unprotected sex, protected sex, all those things can go in there, as well as, your food cravings and just those extra things, your sleeplessness, if you're itchy, if you're uncomfortable, if you're moody. All that data can be correlated together because it will impinge around your hormones. And that's the same with body temp. If you're taking your basal body temperature with either something really easy like Temp Drop or with a basal body temperature thermometer, just a cheap one from the chemist, you can also track that data in. And that's also going to tell us what's going on with progesterone, because you need to understand you can have a cycle and not ovulate. And if you don't ovulate, you're not going to produce a lot of progesterone, because progesterone comes from the ovaries, but it also comes from your adrenal glands, okay? So what happens is when you ovulate and you release an egg, so usually that's around days 14, 15, 16, 17, somewhere in the middle of a 28 to 36 day cycle, which is kind of our standard. When you release that egg, I'm going to just call it leftover for simple terms, but it's called the corpus luteum. That then produces progesterone. Now, when you produce progesterone, get my mouth around that, you see an increase in body temperature, okay? So that's why the second half of your cycle, you should have a higher body temp, and that's why we track it. You'll also have noticed changes in your cervical mucus and an increase in it around ovulating as well, because that mucus is what is there to help bring the sperm up into the egg, okay? And that'll change over your cycle. So I won't go into that today, but start to think about those things and track those things because they're really, really important. Now, if you notice that you get anxious a lot, you don't sleep well, you're irritable, you're weepy, you have those real prominent PMS type symptoms, you need to start to think about, well, where's the calm in my life? What's supposed to be calming me down? What's supposed to be making me sleep well? What's supposed to be making me feel good? And it is progesterone. So if you're having those side effects, you need to think about, well, even if I don't want a baby, I still need to have enough progesterone in my life because it helps you use fat for energy, it gives you good bone health, and it protects your breasts and your uterus against cancer, okay? The other thing it does is it helps use your thyroid hormones. So there's a real strong interplay between the thyroid and the adrenal glands, and I see a lot, along with this fatigue, along with this low progesterone, I see a lot of underactive thyroid function. So remember, nothing happens in isolation in the body. If you have gut dysfunction, if you have bloating, IBS, loose stools, parasites, bacterial overgrowth, your adrenal glands are going to be in hyperdrive, and that's going to affect your progesterone, that's going to affect your periods as well. So it's all interlinked. So we know we need progesterone, okay? We know it makes us feel calm, it makes us feel energized, it helps us manage our weight, it helps balance estrogen out, and obviously protects us against cancer, but also gives us those beautiful moods and lots of energy. So why are we seeing this drop in progesterone? So I talked about the not ovulating, and there's a few reasons you might not be ovulating. Now, if you're on some form of birth control, you potentially may not be ovulating because the synthetic hormones shut down ovulation. If you're perimenopause or heading into menopause, you may not be ovulating as regularly. If you have PCOS, it's possible that you're not ovulating as regularly either, or you're having cycles that you're going through a bleed but you're not ovulating. That's because you've had enough estrogen to build up this egg, but you just haven't released the egg. So you've still got this lining, this build-up that needs to be shed. So you still go through a bleed, but you haven't released the egg. Therefore, you're not producing progesterone because you don't have that corpus luteum sitting there after the egg is released. And then obviously if you're missing periods from hypothalamic amenorrhea or, like I said, the PCOS, the real irregular periods, then you're not going to be ovulating or not ovulating regularly, okay? So that's one side of things. And then it's the stress, the adrenal burnout will affect that low progesterone, because if you're under the pump, if you're go, if your body's prioritizing cortisol, then like I said, making a baby, even if you don't want to have a baby, but making a baby is not a priority. Therefore, progesterone production is not a priority. The other thing that I really notice affects ovulation is the lack of carbohydrates in the diet. So as menstruating women, if we are not eating enough carbs, and I would recommend, if you haven't done it before, track your carbs with Chronometer or MyFitnessPal and just have a look at how many you're actually eating and where they're coming from. You can do this, send it to me on Instagram, let me know, and I can be like, you're way under or you're way over, you need to eat some more protein. Then that can be an issue as well. So if we do have more of a keto or paleo style diet and we really prioritize those proteins and fats, that is going to impact your ovulation as well, okay? So 2 things to support that progesterone. 1, eat enough food, eat regularly, balance your blood sugars, so on that nutrition dietary aspect. And 2, manage your stress. That is a massive one. So whether that's through breath work, whether that's walking, socializing, massage, float tank, doing art, having sex, dancing, whatever it is, find something that helps reduce the stress in your life. So then the other biggest question I get asked around progesterone is, okay, Sheradyn, I've got low progesterone. I'm working on my stress reduction. I'm trying to eat more. I'm monitoring my exercise. What other ways can I boost progesterone? So remember, this is a long-term game, okay? Because you're thinking, well, when you're developing an egg, it's 3 months prior to the release of that egg, just like it's 3 months prior to conception, that you're working on that egg quality. So over the next couple months, think about the Bs in your diet, the B vitamins. Are you getting enough B6, B12, your activated Bs, is whether that's through a supplement, whether that's through bee pollen, nutritional yeast, your grass-fed and your quality meats. If you're deficient in B6 and B12, you're going to notice that in your progesterone, okay? So like I said, there's nutritional elements to pull enough in, but if you know you have really low progesterone, I would recommend a quality B supplement. The other thing is also Vitex chaseberry. That can be super helpful as well. So that works over a 3-month period, but ensuring that you are including some of that in your diet will help your ovaries actually stimulate to produce more progesterone as well. And then zinc. Zinc is a huge one. So ensuring you have enough zinc in your diet through oysters, so 6 to 12 oysters a week, pumpkin seeds, a couple tablespoons of pumpkin seeds every day can be really, really helpful to meet your zinc needs as well. You can take zinc as a supplement. Just have a look at the form of zinc and also see whether it's got cofactors in there with copper, because if you're deficient in copper, you don't have enough bioactive copper, that you're going to have issues as well, because these minerals balance each other out. So to ensure copper's in balance, I would also be focusing on vitamin C, so getting enough whole food vitamin C, so your adrenal cocktail, your fruits or veggies that have vitamin C in it, so your oranges, your sweet potato, things like that. Ensuring you have enough quality vitamin C in your diet. I take a whole food vitamin C powder, so it's got like kakadu plum, camu in it, so things that are just super, super high in bit C, just so that I get enough each day, because I know I'm prone to adrenal burnout, and I know that I'm prone to low progesterone, and I also know that I have a very low immune system, so it's really important for me to support that immune system. Other things that can help is actually maca powder as well. So maca really helps nourish the ovaries, the adrenals, and also your sex drive as well. So be careful because sometimes it can cause digestive stress, but working sort of up to that 1.5 to 3 grams per day can be really, really helpful, and also really helpful for your libido. Zinc is a good one for libido too, but if we've got low progesterone or we're not ovulating regularly, we will see it impact our libido too. So maca, zinc, big ones for that. But then also that feel-good aspect. If your progesterone's low and you're feeling a bit flat, yes, enough magnesium, yes, eating regularly, yes, managing our fatigue, but also adding a little bit of extra dopamine into our diet. So things like dark chocolate that has real cacao in it will help stimulate dopamine, so that neurotransmitter, which gives you that pleasure, that nice feeling. So try some of those things, add those into your diet. If you haven't done any testing, go get some testing done, even if it's baseline stuff, just so that you know where you're starting from. Start tracking your cycles and seeing what your symptoms are, because then you can start to correlate with, what's going on with your body. And it might be the reason of your constipation and your loose stools as well, because remember that hormones strongly affect your gut, okay? If you want to know more, make sure you just flick me a DM on Instagram. I do love hearing from you. You can learn more about my root cause program on my website with the link in my bio on Instagram. And that's where we go in and do some of that comprehensive testing and work over that 6 months to really nourish your adrenals, nourish your ovaries, work on that gut health, and start to correct any dysbiosis or imbalances in your microbiome as well.
Today I'm super excited to have, I don't even know if I'm going to say it right, Kaya.
Yeah.
Kaya Siri, the co-founder, or are you sole founder of Happy Bum Co?
It is me, myself, and I, girlfriend.
Amazing. So she's going to jump on today and chat to us a little bit about enemas, how, why, frequently asked questions, myths, and things around it.
So doing a coffee enema is totally different to drinking a coffee because it doesn't go through the digestive system. So when we're drinking coffee orally, we know it can be quite dehydrating, can be acidic, can give you that kind of anxiety, jittery sort of, caffeine buzz. But when you do a coffee enema, it's very different because it actually gets absorbed straight in through the portal veins and into the bloodstream, and then stimulates that bile production and the glutathione production. So most people report feeling a lot more calm, a lot more grounded, because it is activating that parasympathetic nervous system. So you can still drink coffee and do coffee enemas, but they work in very different ways. And if you do drink coffee, you're a very good candidate for doing coffee enemas because it's going to help support the liver and the adrenal fatigue and the caffeine that we're having in another way, which is a liver loader.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Because I feel like that's like one of those common myths is I can't drink my coffee and have, coffee up my bum in a sense. So people are like, well, I've got to choose one or the other. But is there other myths that you commonly hear that you would go, that is not true either?
Yeah, totally. There's so many misconceptions around enemas. I think that's a big one. Also, if you get jittery drinking coffee, if you don't drink coffee, people think they couldn't do a coffee enema, but I don't drink any coffee. And it's that because drinking coffee makes me feel very jittery, and I don't drink any caffeine at all. But doing a coffee enema is a totally different experience. Very calming, very naturally energizing. So that's a common myth. So you can absolutely do coffee enemas even if you don't drink any caffeine or any coffee. People often think that coffee enemas are really dangerous and you lose a lot of good gut bacteria and electrolytes in a scary way. And I always have a bit of a chuckle because when we drink coffee, it's very, very dehydrating, which can really impact your gut microbiome and your electrolytes. And, there's not someone running around every coffee shop, you're seeing the line going, oh, have you had your electrolytes after this? Oh, excuse me. I mean, look, I'm all for, I love electrolytes and I love probiotics, but one coffee enema is not going to make or break any kind of level you have with bacteria or electrolytes. Definitely be hydrated. I love electrolytes, but this is not some big scary life-altering experience doing one coffee enema. If you're doing them regularly, like bowel movements, we're going to release good and bad bacteria with any bowel movement that we have. If you're doing an enema, you're going to get a bigger bowel movement, so more both good and bad will come out. However, if you're suffering from a lot of gut health issues, there's a really good chance that you have a lot of stuff that doesn't belong in there. You could have, like you were saying earlier, SIBO, candida, parasites, mold, bad bacteria overgrowth that is present in the bowel. And we really need to get out so that we can actually create a healthy environment for good bacteria to flourish.
Yeah, because the other thing is, like, you do the coffee enemas, but there's other things you do. You have probiotic blends, or you have other blends of things, don't you? Not just the coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. So we take a really holistic stance because, detoxing is one part of it. So we kind of take a two-step approach at the Happy Bum Co. So step one is detoxing everything out. People often like to skip to step two where they're trying to replenish all the good bacteria. But if you've got candida and parasites and a whole big buildup of stool and toxins, you really need to start with the detox. Get everything out first that doesn't belong. And then we have a whole range of bulb blends, which we use to basically infuse back into the body after you detox. Mm-hmm. And that can help with your good bacteria. The Happy Bum Biotic helps actually recolonize good bacteria, go straight into your colon. So most people don't realize when they take an oral supplement that they actually lose a lot of that bacteria as it goes to the digestive system and the stomach acid. A Happy Bum bulb, you implant it exactly where you want it to be. We've got a hormone blend, an anti-inflammatory blend, a calm blend for stress. You can do our greens powder that way to alkalize. There's so many cool things that you can do it's kind of like, I tell people it's kind of like taking a wheatgrass shot, but the other way, and it absorbs straight into your bloodstream, and the effects are just amazing. So if you're someone that's suffering with a lot of inflammation or hormone troubles, you could do a coffee enema first to detoxify, stimulate all the antioxidants and the liver function, and then support after by either putting your probiotics back in if you're having gut health issues, or you can do your hormone blend to support your healthy hormone function. The options are endless, and it's kind of like a toolkit that you can use on the day for whatever you need. So This morning I did a coffee enema and a soothe blend, which is the anti-inflammatory and calm to help my nervous system and inflammation.
So would you do your enema kit first and then you put the blend in and then do that afterwards?
So I prepare two blends. So I do my coffee enema first, because that way your colon's nice and clear as well. So anytime you do an enema, you also get an epic bowel movement that helps with bloating, constipation, removing anything that's not supposed to be there. You have a nice comfy tummy after, but it's also clearing the way so that we can absorb things that way. Because if you do, say you put we do use 100 to 200 mils of a solution. If you have a bowel movement sitting right there, it's a lot harder to hold. So if you do the coffee enema first, clear everything out, sit on the toilet, and then we have these cute little bulbs that it's like a little handheld, and you just pop your little solution in there, stick the tip up, and then you just hold it up, and the little bit of solution comes in, and then it just absorbs straight into the body, and you just go about your day.
Oh, that's amazing.
It doesn't even feel like you need to go. It just absorbs straight in. And away you go. So you just get those properties just go straight where you need them. So for people with Crohn's and colitis and anti-inflammatory bowel disease, anyone with joint pain, anything that's inflammatory, everything's inflammatory, right? You can do the turmeric ones, are just amazing. But any of the blends for specific reasons.
Yeah. So I know you've got some great videos and stuff on this anyway, but can you talk us through sort of briefly how to actually do an enema and what's sort of involved in it? Because I think there'd be a lot of people who are I know what a colonic is in a sense, so what and how does the enema work?
An enema is so easy. It's basically a little silicone bag that holds 2 liters of solution. It has a little hanging hook. You lay a towel down on the floor or on a little bench, wherever you want to lay, and then you hang the bag above you. So it's a gravity flow that carries the solution into your colon. So the tip is little and silicone and soft. And basically, when you're ready, you make your blend. You say your coffee, you cool to body temperature, you pour it in the bag. We have a plunger that comes with the kit. It just makes it so easy. You strain it, making sure it's body temperature, and then you pour it into your happy bum bag, and then you lay your little towel down. I get a pillow, make myself comfy. You can lubricate the tip with a little bit of coconut oil or shea butter, whatever you've got. And then you just pop that one up when you're ready. Either lie down on your side or your back. I put my feet up, but you don't have to, however you're comfortable. And there's a little clip that allows the flow to start coming in. You open the clip and gravity just pulls the solution nice and gently into your colon. And say for a water enema for constipation, you would just try to take the whole bag and sit immediately on the toilet, because the whole purpose of a water enema is just to soften the stool and release it all out. There's no therapeutic benefits. But a coffee enema has therapeutic benefits. So we actually want to take a smaller amount of solution and hold it for about 12 to 15 minutes. And that's what stimulates that glutathione production, the bile production, and that liver detox benefit. So the coffee enemas, we use about 600 to 800 mils of solution, which is just the organic coffee enema. And then we hold it for as long as we can in that 12 to 15 minute span. Your first coffee enema, probably you won't last that long. And that's okay. And that's because your body is toxic or you've got high levels of inflammation. It's just more reason to keep doing them, because you will get to the point where it is easy for you to hold. It just might take time. It depends what's going on in your body and what needs to come out.
Yeah, interesting, because I went through like years ago when I was starting all my gut stuff, and I had chronic constipation and all the bacteria overgrowth and everything, and I got such relief from colonics. But I was like the same as you, like initially I was going like once a week because I needed to have a bowel movement, and I was like, got to do a colonic, and then I was like, I can't afford to go 2 or 3 times a week, and was sort of relying on laxatives and things, and then did the gut health work, and a lot of that's cleared up and don't have issues now. But a lot of my friends, a lot of clients have used enemas, but I've never used them because by the time they sort of came into my awareness, I was having regular bowel movements already, and I kind of went, well, I don't need it anymore because I'm already having bowel movements. And then I've got your kit sitting here, which I was going to do after this podcast. But I was, my thought was like, there's so many other things, because I've struggled with PCOS and everything else from all the gut stuff too. And now we go, actually, this has got further flow-on effects, which is really, really great. But my other question then, if someone has loose stools, like someone's got hydrogen-dominant SIBO and they're having, 2, 3, 4, 5 loose stool bowel movements a day, should they be doing them? Is there contraindications around enemas, or how does that work?
So for someone that's having loose stool, coffee enemas are antiparasitic and anti-candida, and they can really help actually get rid of a lot of the things we don't want, mold in the gut. And then as we detoxify, often diarrhea, that's one reason for diarrhea, but diarrhea can also be inflammation. It can be actually lining buildup of stool and mucoid plaque along the colon lining. So sometimes people with diarrhea actually need a really strong colon cleanse. And we see that a lot in our colonics clinic. So really different reasons for diarrhea. Diarrhea can also be parasites as well. So again, coffee enemas are anti-parasitic. So a lot of people message through and they're like, oh my God, I've seen worms. And we're like, yeah, that's probably why you've been so bloated for the last, 2 years. And so again, with everything needs to come out before we put it in. But that person as well, when we're having diarrhea, there's a lot of inflammation. And that person would also be a really good candidate for the Soothe blend, which is the anti-inflammatory. So the turmeric enemas are just so good to calm everything down. But generally, it's things need to come out. There's something in there that's causing that type of bowel movement, and it needs to come out. Again, if you're having so much loose stool, you're going to want to be taking an electrolyte or something to replenish, and obviously the right kind of bacteria for whatever it is that you're treating. But usually the inflammation and the irritants need to come out, and the coffee enema can be really helpful with that. And then I would be doing the Soothe blend, which is the anti-inflammatory. And then you can even be, if there's a very specific probiotic strain that they need, they could use the bulb for that, or they can use our biotic blend, which is a really powerful one, proven for like IBS and IBD, to help replenish the colon.
Yeah, because a lot of it, like when I'm seeing it, it's from that hydrogen-driven SIBO. Like it is like 99% of the time. If it's constipation, then yeah, sometimes it's methane or sometimes it's large bacteria, but often it's either parasite or that the real hydrogen stuff, which I guess the enema kit's going to help with and clear. And like you said, then actually you can pop that bulb up with the probiotics, which is going to be super helpful as well. So then if someone has regular bowel movements, how often would you do a coffee enema? Like once, twice a week?
Well, it depends. So, is the person having regular bowel movements but hormonal issues? Is the person taking a lot of medication but having regular bowel movements? So, everyone has a different lens, I suppose, on why they would need to be detoxifying the liver. So, if you are like in your peak, so for me, I'm in peak condition. I have actually no health problems except that my bowel is quite slow. So I do them for constipation to make sure that my detox pathways are open because I've been there and I am never going back. So huge believer in bowel movements, lots of them every day. But if I'm ever feeling real, say stress is a big one for me because my life is full but I'm very aware of it. So I take those steps to really manage my cortisol levels and my hormones. When I've had my babies, your hormones are a bit out of whack. So I would be doing my coffee enemas to support hormones or, because if you're losing a lot of sleep as well, so new parents, you're losing a lot of sleep, which really affects your hormone function. And so knowing those things that, can support your hormones is really important. But if you are constipated, you can be doing them as often as you need. That's amazing relief that's at your fingertips. If you say your skin is really bad, you can use your coffee enemas to help to stimulate that liver to detoxify, and that is going to make all the difference in your skin. I have seen the changes in so many people, and it's just helping to clear out your liver is just incredible. Yeah. And then you just poo everything out. It's just that toxicity doesn't need to then, often people take supplements and it can take so long and it's, it's kind of worked, but then my bowels aren't really moving more than once a day. So they're not all coming out and then the toxins get reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. The enema is just like a surefire. Get all the toxins out and then they leave your body right then and there, which is so cool.
Yeah. So a lot of my clients, as they come pregnant as well, they're struggling with constipation, obviously, structural changes and things, but is it something that's safe? Would you just do the water one in pregnancy then? And that's your safest bet? Yeah.
We do have a little pregnancy bundle because we get this question so many times, but yes, water enemas during pregnancy because it's just to help that stool move through, helps to hydrate everything. I did a water enema every single day of all 3 of my pregnancies and never had a problem. But also my midwives were super on board, loved it. Did them during labor to help clear the way because a lot of women actually have bowel movements when they give birth and so much pressure, especially if your bowel movements have been really off during your pregnancy. You are pushing a baby out. You also don't need kilos of stool sitting there. You just don't. So, oh my gosh. Pregnancy water enemas are life-changing. And we also have a product called Happy Bum Mag, which is magnesium oxide that just helps to basically like liquefy the stool. So the 2 together, if you're really constipated, are like a match made in heaven. And that's totally pregnancy safe as well.
Yeah, that's awesome because a lot of my clients will take magnesium citrate or oxide just to help get those bowels moving. But if you can do that through an enema kit as well, that would be incredible because I can think of a few clients straight away who go, oh, that would just be game changing for them. Even post pregnancy, like one of my best friends in Perth's got a 6-month-year-old, and since like giving birth, she's just like, I've just really been struggling with bowel movements. And I'm like, you do the classic stuff, sort of your magnesium cascara and things, but she's like, things just aren't moving the way they used to prior to bub. So I think something like that would be super helpful as well.
It is. And enema kits are actually, this is another common misconception. People think that enemas make your bowel lazy. and gravity enemas like we use. So you can go buy a little Fleets enema in the store, and yes, that will make your bowel lazy because it's chemicals and it's nowhere near enough solution to do anything. But the Happy Bum Bag gravity enema kits are actually helpful to retrain and stimulate peristalsis.